I don't trust people anymore, not because I hate them, but because every single fucking hand I held eventually dropped me. I showed up when it was uncomfortable, when it was heavy, when nobody else wanted the responsibility. I stayed loyal, stayed patient, stayed silent, and still got left like my effort never mattered. People love you when you're useful, but the second you need them, they vanish without explanation. Look at me, that shit changes you, because you realize trust isn't rare, consistency is. I didn't become guarded for no reason. I became guarded after being dropped too many fucking times. Every promise that broke, every silence that followed taught me exactly how people really move. So if I don't trust people anymore, understand, this isn't bitterness, it's survival.
Get your life, get your life, get your life, baby. I got mine, why you can serve my mind, baby. Feeling me, that's why they killing me, lately. Get your life. Get your life, get your life, get your life, baby. I got mine, why you can serve my mind, baby. Feeling me, that's why they killing me, lately. Get your life. Run up when you see me, no disguises. Keep that thing with me, cause I don't do surprises. J Chanel, show and tell, all facts, no lies, streak. Get your life, cause I'm the type to come to it that 9 quick. Eyes on me, what you care for? Watching me, baby, care for. If you ain't a fan, where the cameras? Hide in the back with the bellboys. My circle so restricted. Hands raised like it's your religion. When I sleep, pay close attention. Fake friends out here pretending. Get your life, get your life, get your life, baby. I got mine, why you can serve my mind, baby. Feeling me, that's why they killing me, lately. Get your life. Get your life, get your life, get your life, baby. I got mine, why you can serve my mind, baby. Feeling me, that's why they killing me, lately. Get your life.
Focus there.
Watch them cause they after me like a pot of gold. I'm not for play, ask Keisha if you don't know. I'm a little bit cray-cray, approach me, you better be right. If you don't come correctly, you can catch these cans tonight. Eyes on me, what you care for? Watching me, baby, care for. If you ain't a fan, why the cameras? Hide in the back with the bellboys. My circle's so restricted. Hands raised like it's your religion. When I sleep, pay close attention. Fake friends out here pretending. Get your life, get your life, get your life, baby. I got mine, why you can serve my mind, baby. Feeling me, that's why they killing me, lately. Get your life.
Get your life.
Get your life, get your life, get your life, baby. I got mine, why you can serve my mind, baby. Feeling me, that's why they killing me, lately. Get your life.
Get your life, boo.
Good morning, good evening, good night, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's your nighttime, right time DJ Music, and welcome to another episode of The Chop Shop. You see what we're talking about today there, folks. I told you everything that I was doing up to now is going to culminate into this thing called the Heritage Foundation. Sometimes when you see that snake in the grass, you might look at it and think it's not long, and you don't see the head till eventually. So, now we talk about the big boys. We talked about Clarence Thomas, and we talked about Delano Shields, and what their impact was on the Black community. And some folks would say that they stepped away from the Black community once they got into some semblance of power. Well, here's a prime example, ladies and gentlemen, what you see on the screen here, Mr. Kevin Roberts. A prime example of a wolf in sheep's clothing. This man got educated through us because of us, not in spite of us. And then when he got into some semblance of power, the education that he used that he gained from us, the knowledge that gave him his PhD, that gave him this notoriety, he became part of this thing called the Heritage Foundation. And we all know what the Heritage Foundation does. They say it started way back when, I think way back in 1973. That's when it was founded. And as we see it right now today, we all focus on, as they say, how many African Americans have lost their job. But I think the very first one that lost their job due to the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025, which now they have labeled the Project 2026, which you don't hear mainstream media speaking of at all. Project 2025 is damn near implemented. They have successfully got the judges in place. Somebody tell me I'm wrong. What's up there, Logic Assessment? How you doing there? Logical Assessment, how you doing, good brother? Welcome in, welcome in. Yeah, my man, we're going to talk it up about a little bit about your boy, Mr. Roberts here. And again, like I said, wolf in sheep's clothing. And you'll see what I'm talking about. I pulled together a few clips. And I tell you what, this was a hard guy to present to you because there was so much information about him. And some of it, no, don't get me wrong. I'm not attacking his education. I'm not attacking him as not a learned man. What I'm about to point out to you is that his hypocrisy runs deep. You'll hear him say some things that I'm not. Listen, don't have a PhD. I don't have a law degree. I don't have anything that. But what I do have is, like you said, logical. I do have common sense. And common sense tells me when something ain't right, let me pay attention to it. So this guy is running around talking about how the Democrats have hijacked history, CRT being taught in schools and all that. You really got to go to their, let me do this. Let me take this off the screen. Let me take this off the screen here. And then let me share something with y'all. And let me share something with you. Let's start all the way up at the beginning here at the Heritage Foundation. You folks, let me know if y'all can see that right there. Let me know if y'all can see that. There we go. Let me put this bigger on the screen here. All right, there it is right there. That famous picture of Washington crossing the Delaware. How many of y'all believe that is a historical fact right there? That picture right there that we see in schools and colleges and libraries, just about anywhere. That we see it on people using as mottos, people using it as creeds. How many of y'all believe that this picture right here is historic, has actual historical value? Or how many of y'all believe that it's created? It's a depiction of what someone thought. How about if I tell y'all that this famous picture here, that the United States itself so adores was not even painted by an American citizen. That this picture right here was not. This picture right here that we're looking at, that's on the front page of the Heritage Foundation website itself, is a contradiction to what Mr. Roberts is about to talk about, hijacking history. How about this one? Let me slide down a little farther here. How about this particular picture? Not this one. Where is it at? How about this particular picture? Let's get to it. It'll come up in just a minute. How about this picture right here? It'll come up. Let me see if I can bring it up. This picture right here of all the great, and their knickers and their gray powdered wigs, signing the Declaration of Independence. How many places we see this in banks? We see this in the state houses. We see this picture everywhere. The United States of America sells its souls to this picture right here, because this is one of the most sacred pictures. The founding fathers signing the Declaration of Independence. What if I told you that that picture is not even real? That's another depiction. It wasn't even painted during that time. That is a picture that someone created. That none of this is what you see in front of you here is real. Someone painted this. But we're going to see your boy in a little while, and we're going to come back to this. So I'm gonna leave Mr. Roberts talking about the hypocrisy of the Democrats and the woke folks hijacking history for their benefit. But first, we're going to start right here, because a lot of people, I got some emails saying that stuff that you were saying about Lyndon Johnson wasn't true. And sometimes you need to hear it from the horse's mouth. So I found someone that looks like the critics can talk to you folks that will let you know that I did not make this up. So here we go.
Resentment kills the social safety net. The $1,450 Iran war tax on your family, Trump's 3,600 stock trades, Ben Gavir's abuse video, and Trump's billion-dollar ballroom grab. Good morning. This is the Commonwealth Report, news for the public, not the powerful. You can follow us at commonwealthreport.news.
Wait a minute.
White resentment confirms what LBJ...
Wait a minute. Before we get to what he says about LBJ, and he's going to talk about white resentment, it's not from what you're hearing from me. This man is much older than me, so he's lived longer. So I think if anybody has he looks like the critics, so let him speak. But something happened in the last 20 to 48 hours. Donald Trump's spiritual advisor, as we all know, was convicted on child molestation charges. Several counts. 6 months later, this man is out. 6 months later, he is out walking around. Think about that for a sec while y'all listen to this.
Warned us about 60 years ago. Lyndon Johnson once told Bill Moyers that if you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best black man, he'll empty his pockets for you. 60 years later, science has caught up. A new study from University of Delaware political scientists Sumi Ikon-Goser and Joanne Miller, published in Sage Journals, found that white Americans, even poor ones, turn against the social safety net the moment they think non-whites might benefit from it as well.
And he's absolutely true, because the old adage goes that the majority of people that are on welfare are black people. But if it's simple to, how do you say, debunk that just by population alone. The majority of people that are on welfare live in the rural South of the United States and red states. White, not black people. But if you listen to the critics or the folks that's been putting this welfare statement out for years, Black people are the number one recipients of welfare. So basically, what this gentleman on the screen is trying to tell y'all voting against your best interest because you really believe that Black people receive welfare and they are the biggest welfare fraud recipients. But if you go look at the crime statistics, again, white folks lead the charge when it comes to defrauding the government with welfare. We can talk about Brett Favre, not even in the news anymore. Everybody wants to bring up Minnesota.
Researchers asked over 700 white respondents whether their group was losing politically compared to minorities. The ones who said yes suddenly opposed economic redistribution, even when it would have helped them. In nearly every other wealthy democracy, high inequality drives demand for stronger programs, but not here. Here, white resentment beats white self-interest every time. So why can't we have universal health care, real wages, or affordable housing? Because a chunk of this country would rather drown than throw anyone else a rope.
That's the old adage of I wish I would help you out. If I make you equal to me, then I can't have power over you. If you get the same thing that I got, what's to separate us? What's to separate us? And I use this to lead into what Kevin Roberts is going to be talking about. And you'll see exactly how much of a hypocrite he really is. And he says that he is not trying to create a make America society great again. But that's exactly what he's doing. Why? Exactly what this man is talking about right now. White resistance. Not coming out of my mouth.
That's the cage LBJ described, and we're still locked inside it. Will your Memorial Day burger cost you a mortgage payment? Fire up the grill. Trump's war with Iran has already cost the average household an extra $291 at the pump. And
the average household is already paying over $291 at the pump for a war that we did not need to be in. But Trump ran on no new wars.
The Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy says we'll spend $3.5 billion more on gas over the Memorial Day weekend alone. By year's end, the average family could be out $1,450.
It's the day after, a couple of days after Memorial Day. So we just spent $3.5 billion because of Trump's war. From last Friday to Tuesday, we spent $3.5 billion going somewhere.
National gas prices are pushing $4.48 a gallon, and analysts are warning of $5 next month. And it's not just gas. A Century Foundation and Groundwork Collaborative analysis shared with Scripps News found cookout staples are up 13% on average. 6 ears of corn now run $5.90, up from $2.97 last year. That's a 98% jump. Inflation is at its highest since 2023. Trump promised cheap groceries. He delivered an oil war and a tariff tax on your hamburger. Why is the mainstream press burying Trump's stock trading scheme? Judd Legum, a popular...
Now, I want y'all to understand this. Listen to what Trump is doing right now as the president of the United States. This got to be the greatest grift known to. This is historical, what Trump is doing. And he's openly doing this, folks. Listen to what this man that David Blight is about to explain to you. Excuse me, I forgot his name, not David Blight. But listen to what he's about to explain to you, what Trump is openly doing, folks. Whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican or whether you're independent, you folks are allowing this. You are literally complicit in Trump robbing the United States citizen blind. Look.
Information has documented something jaw-dropping, and most of corporate media won't touch it. Trump's own financial disclosures show more than 3,600 trades in the first quarter alone, worth between $220 and $750 million. And the pattern is sickening. On March 11th, Trump visited a Thermo Fisher plant in Ohio and bought between $15,000 and $50,000 of its stock the same day. He praised Apple manufacturing and bought Apple. He bought Micron, Dell, Palantir, NVIDIA, and Boeing right before talking them up or cutting government deals for them. He scooped up NVIDIA stock just before clearing the company to sell chips to China. Bloomberg called the trading astonishing. CNN, CBS, NPR, PBS, Politico, and Fox haven't said a word. J.D. Vance, asked about it this week, scolded the reporter for not being objective. This is the most brazen self-dealing in presidential history, and the press is asleep at the wheel. Watergate looks like a parking ticket.
Watergate looks like a parking ticket. Hey there, L Boogie. Hey, Candy Cane Lane. And what's up there, Terrible Times? How you doing? Tom Hartman, that's his name. Thank you. I couldn't remember his name right quick, but yes, he does. And folks, again, I'll have the link to his channel. I would suggest you go subscribe to it. The man is quite intelligent. He knows his stuff. He's a great historian. Again, it's hard to beat experience. And as you can see, this man's been around for quite some time. He lays it down to the law. So again, thank you there, Terrible Times, for reminding me of his names. But let's get back to it here.
Has Israel's security minister crossed every line that's left? Itamar Ben-Gvir, Israel's far-right national security minister, posted video of himself parading of around 430 zip-tied flotilla activists at the port of Ashdod. The activists, including Italian, Spanish, French, Dutch, and Canadian citizens, had tried to bring aid to starving Gazans. Israel seized their boats in international waters. In the footage, Ben-Gvir waves an Israeli flag while activists kneel on their heads on the ground, with their heads on the ground in stress positions. The national anthem blasts over loudspeakers. He tells guards, "Don't be bothered by their screams." A woman shouts, "Free Palestine," and gets shoved on the floor. Ben-Gvir struts past her saying, "Welcome to Israel. We are the landowners here." Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, the Netherlands, and Canada all summoned their Israeli ambassadors. Even Netanyahu publicly rebuked him. Even Mike Huckabee criticized him. When the U.S. ambassador to Israel says you've gone too far, you've gone way too far. This is the face of the government that our tax dollars keep arming. Will Trump actually bill you for his gilded ballroom? Trump swore his White House ballroom would cost taxpayers nothing.
I remember that. He got on national TV, I think somewhere around the State of the Union, and he said that the ballroom was going to be donations only. It would not cost the taxpayers anything, but we know better now. I want y'all to understand something. The President of the United States has created a slush fund. Put those two words together, the President of the United States and a slush fund. And the Republicans, the majority of the Republicans, regardless, it's not about politics now. It's about a little bit of sense of morality here. Where your balls at? Y'all consider the White House this sacred place. I'm gonna go back to why, because George Washington was there. Y'all revere George Washington, the father of the country, but yet the very place that he slept at and told you this place should be sacred, y'all let Trump come down here in less than a year, tear it down. Could you imagine if Obama would have made even an attempt to say, hey, I'm about to remodel the East Wing? Could you imagine the memes that would have showed up? The broke down cars, the barbecue grills, all of that would have been on True Social. And guess who would have reposted it? Trump. But let's get back to it.
Now, Senate Republicans are scrambling to slip $1 billion of public money into a border security bill, with $220 million specifically aimed at the ballroom Trump's already bulldozed the East Wing to build. The Senate parliamentarian, Elizabeth McDonough, ruled it doesn't qualify under budget reconciliation rules. Trump called Senate Majority Leader John Thune and demanded he fire her. Thune refused. And here's the kicker. Republicans now admit they don't actually have the votes. Even Susan Collins is asking why Secret Service priorities weren't in the regular budget request that came out just last month. Louisiana's John Kennedy told Notice
And I'm wondering, I wonder how Susan Collins feels, because if you go back into a little bit of time in history, if Susan Collins would have voted one way, Donald Trump would not be a factor right now. It's her vote and two other Republicans that allowed this foolery, this open hijack, this open highway robbery of American citizens. She was one of the ones that said, you know what, let's not impeach him. But the president shouldn't be, a sitting president shouldn't be held to charges. Go back and look at her record. Absolutely. Another distraction. Another distraction. You're absolutely right.
They're going back to square one. So Trump's blaming a career civil servant to cover for his own party walking away from him. He'll tear down a wing of the People's House for a gold-plated dance hall, then send you the bill. That's not leadership. That's a kleptocracy with bunting. And that's the way it is today, Thursday, May 21st, 2026.
That's a kleptocracy with bunting. I've never heard that word before until I listened to this earlier. Because that is how you can describe a kleptomaniac, because that's what Donald Trump is, and that's what his regime is. That's what his family is. They can't help themselves, folks. Every member of Donald Trump's family, every member of Donald Trump's inner circle has enriched themselves since they've been in office. And the Republicans are the Democrats are sitting by week after week holding hearings while this shit goes on. Excuse my language. What good is a hearing when you don't do anything about it? I'm gonna be quite honest with you. I love my man Brian BTC, Brian Tyler Cohen, but I'm tired of watching it because there's always some breaking news that nothing gets done about. Trump got caught at this today. Trump got caught at this today. Breaking news: Trump got caught at this today. And at the end, you buy my book. Buy my book. It gets to be when is legacy media, not only legacy media, but those that we help put in front of us, when you go stop selling books. But let's move on to the next thing here. Let's get into who your boy actually really is. Now, this one here, this is less than 6 months old. No, I tell you what. Let's do this. Let's let him talk about Project 2025 first. Let's let him talk about that.
I say today, thank you for joining us, and we're joined today by Kevin Roberts, president of the Heritage Foundation, and he's here because of what a lot of politicians like to call Project 2025. It's a subject of a lot of criticism from the Democrats and a lot of praise from Republicans. So I just want to start out by asking, what is Project 2025?
David, thanks for the opportunity to visit with you. I suppose if progressive Democrats hate it, it's a good idea. And it's a good idea because it's a corrective to what's happened for too long in this country, which is over the last half century, especially since LBJ was president, progressive Democrats, the radical left, have taken over the federal government as unelected bureaucrats. Project 2025 is an attempt to restore.
Okay, you hear the man says as unelected bureaucrats. Well, Kevin, you are the president of the Heritage Foundation and another foundation. You have 200 employees at one place and about 39-40 employees in another place. But you have the reach of over millions and millions and millions of people. You and your two foundations shape the policies of the United States government through your lobbyists, through your money. None of you folks are elected. So how could you say that the Democrats are doing this when actually you folks are doing the very same thing? Let it make sense to me. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong. Is this man here an elected official? But does he not shape policy? Does he not shape the American political system? Him and the folks at the Heritage Foundation. Oh, you don't believe me? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. Let me go back again. Okay, about the Heritage Foundation. We see here they're building a strong America, the American family, dignity at work, culture, and free enterprise, national security. If you are an unelected official, what you worried about national security for? Look at all the things here that under these so-called unelected officials and bureaucrats. Look, this is them. The 2026 Lee Edwards Lecture, Conservative Leadership, Kevin Roberts Show, Ready, Set, Hill, the conservative news and reporting grassroots activism. These folks shape American politics, unelected bureaucrats. So isn't that like the pot calling the kettle black? I think it is. I think that is the pot calling the kettle black, folks. I think it is.
Constitutional order to this country. It is a set of policies. It is a menu of options. I like to refer to it as sort of the menu from Cheesecake Factory. It's every possible thing that someone might want to take on, which means there's no possible way that any president, even if he or she was really aligned with everything, would take on all of these, right? It's a manual for conservative policy thought, but it's also a database for personnel who may.
Well, let me ask you something, Kevin. If it's been around since 1973, why wasn't it really starting being popularized until Reagan? As only Reagan was the president in 1973?
Be chosen by the next president and his advisors to do so. That's ultimately his choice, right? And I think the thing that the media has gotten totally wrong about Project 2025 is both some of the particular planks in it, but also that the whole point is to be of service to any administration. Frankly, we would love it if the current administration would use it. We know that philosophically it's unlikely. I'm not being sarcastic in saying that, but we also know that great ideas and great people rise to the top. And if the will of the American people this November is to elect Donald Trump and J.D. Vance as president and vice president, then the strength of those ideas, the strength of those people, forget about the label Project 2025, I think will rise to the top.
Well, they did because say it's a blueprint for a Trump administration. I mean, why are they wrong?
It's a blueprint only if President Trump, Vice President Vance choose it to be, right? They're the bosses.
Well, we now know this is pre-election here, so we now know it was the blueprint. Again, wolf in sheep's clothing, folks. Up until President Trump got elected, they tried their damnedest. The Republicans and the Heritage Foundation tried their damnedest to keep those two entities separate. But now they're damn near one and the same. I won't say they're one and the same when it comes to MAGA, but you know something? The apple don't fall from the tree. It's a root of it. MAGA is a root of the Heritage Foundation.
They're the guys who are going to make the decision along with their advisors, and perhaps some historical context is helpful. The Heritage Foundation has done this since 1980 with what we then called Mandate for Leadership. I think what has made Project 2025 such a boogeyman for progressive Democrats this time around is that the conservative movement has never been this unified. We've never been this organized. We've never been this resolute, especially after the assassination attempt on Saturday, about making sure that when conservatives are in power.
Again, see, a lot of people, they're talking about, this was a week after the Trump assassination. So assassination attempt, I should say, that we now know that we can look at Trump. We've seen several photos of him since that. I was in the military. Not only was I in the military, I grew up around weapons my entire life. And I can guarantee you this, folks. If you got shot in the ear by a 30-06, it wouldn't be there anymore. Not unless Trump went into some lab somewhere and they was able to grow him a new ear. That bottom lobe of his ear should have been gone. But you can go on any internet site and pull up a picture of Trump, and when he's facing towards you with the so-called ear that was injured, it looks pristine. Explain that to a man that supposedly got shot at less than 200 yards away by a high-powered rifle. Common sense. Ain't that logic? Ain't that right? Logical. Common sense tells me that don't happen. Even if you believe that the assassination attempt was not staged, even if he got hit, even if it was real and the guy was that much of a bad aim, the ear still should have been gone. Given the benefit of the doubt that, okay, it was real, why does he still have an entire earlobe? Let's cover both sides of it. That's where someone can say, no, are you saying it's not real? I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. But my still question remains the same. Real or stage, why does he still have an ear?
Or whether they're president of the United States, member of the U.S. Senate, governor, mayor, that there's actually policy substance behind what they want to do. There will always be disagreements in this country about policy direction. I think it's imperative on the left that they stop the rhetoric. Some of it's been vile and violent. Some of it has led to threats on those of us on the right. That was happening before Saturday. If they want to have a policy conversation, let's be intellectually honest about it, which is why I appreciate having this conversation with you.
Again, folks, you can go back to 2015 from the time Donald Trump came down the steps. He has been the instrument. He has been the loudest voice in vileness and calling for people to be thrown out. He famously said once, you know what would have happened to him back in the days? This is all Donald Trump quotes. If you beat him up, I'll pay your bail. Throw him out of here. These are all Donald Trump quotes that I'm being kind of not speaking it verbatim, but I know I'm close to him. I like folks that body slam people. These are all Donald Trump quotes. Grab them by the private parts. These are all Donald Trump quotes that we've heard him say on public platforms. But here you have this man, Kevin, trying to tell you that it's the Democrats and the left that's making all this. Remember when Nancy Pelosi's husband got beat up? Someone broke into their house and beat him over the head with a hammer. What did Donald Trump say about that? There was someone that died recently. What did Donald Trump say about that? What did they say when we clearly saw Donald Trump calling a reporter a bitch? Where was the outrage then?
They say you guys want to end abortion,
Which is wrong.
want to allow the president to stack the government with partisans rather than. So why are they wrong about them? Let's take those two issues: abortion.
Because they have a
president's
first-grade level of reading comprehension.
What do you want to do with abortion policy?
With abortion policy, we aspire to a pro-life country that is settled by society and culture. President Trump and Vice President Vance have charted a vision in terms of politics and policy that reflects the majority of the country, which is let's let states focus on this. And beyond that, I think it's important to understand on other policy areas like education, which have.
Now, I want y'all to remember that he inferred to let's let the states come to this. But we know how hard it is now. In some states, it's criminal to seek or have that procedure. Thanks to the works of Project 2025, almost verbatim. But this was pre-election.
Happens to be my policy expertise. I'm a fifth-generation teacher, only went to public schools, grew up a poor kid like J.D. Vance. What stands in the way of people in South Texas or in the Rust Belt in achieving the success that, say, J.D. Vance has gotten is that we've spent $1 trillion on the U.S. Department of Education or so since 1979, and all that's happened is that academic achievement in every demographic group has gone down. What Project 2025 charts is a vision that updates education, that devolves power from Washington and gives it back to.
That is absolutely not true. And you can go to any statistics that'll be honest, that you will see that the number one, the main people that go to higher academia are African American women. And that is fact. Even in our own community, for both sexes to go to a higher academia, Black women go 64% more than Black men. That is fact. That is absolute fact.
The states and to the people.
What's your response to this claim that your plan would give the president basically unlimited power to prosecute political enemies, to eliminate regulations?
There's nothing in the plan that says that. I think what the Biden-Harris campaign has done is take a 100% mischaracterization of the plan, and they've spent more money on that attacking it than we have spent putting the plan together.
And that's why it's important that I brought this to you, because this was before the election, and we have seen that the Trump regime does have a hit list. We've seen them, how many they tried to prosecute James Comey, Letitia James, how many people that they went in and gutted at anything that had to do with Trump and the Epstein files, or any lawyer that had anything to do with him being impeached. Any lawyer that had anything to do with the, as he called it, the Russia hoax. This, what we're seeing now, was pre-election. So he's trying to convince this reporter or whoever that's just sitting down with him that these things will not exist. We're doing a time back in future, because we now know that everything he's saying is an absolute lie. But this man is in head of two major organizations that shape the policies of the United States of America, economic policies that some say targets brown and Black folks, especially Black folks. And you'll see what I'm getting at in a little while.
They get one thing right, however. One thing right amid all of that mischaracterization, so I'll give them credit. It does call for the elimination of the U.S. Department of Education.
That's true. And why would you want to do that, though?
Because it's just been a disaster. As I mentioned, I still, believe it or not, have friends on the political left. I've been the only conservative faculty member in some faculties, and so I understand that slings and arrows come when you're a conservative and say these things, but by any objective measure, for someone who's intellectually honest, who considers themselves easily convinced by facts, there is no objective measure that says that the U.S. Department of Education's creation has benefited American education. Every objective measure since its creation has actually gone down.
Now, of course, President Trump former President Trump is trying to distance himself from your plan. He says he doesn't know anything about it. That's not really true, is it? I mean, he's spoken at Heritage Foundation events, and there are a lot of his people who have been involved in developing this plan.
Look, the Heritage Foundation has a good relationship with President Trump even to this day. We understand with absolutely no hard feelings that he has to run a campaign independent of all of these other groups, right? We also, for the sake of our groups, because we're nonprofits, are independent of a presidential campaign. We're in a political season right now. That political season is going horrifically for progressive Democrats because the policy record of the Biden-Harris administration is awful on the economy, on education, on energy, on foreign policy. I could keep going on, but I'll.
Okay, so all of those things that he said that was going horrible for the Biden-Harris campaign is on all those things that he just mentioned. As I showed you last week, Trump is underwater in. And every one of those categories that he just said, the Biden and Harris administration was failing at, Trump is underwater in. The economy, he's definitely underwater there by a huge number. No one in the majority of the United States population disagrees with the war in Iran right now. Over half the country disagrees, way over half of the country disagrees with how Trump was handling the economy. Stop it. So these are the things that you were quick. He is quick to critique the Biden-Harris administration on. But yet, look who's really underwater. I showed you that proof. I gave you the numbers. But this is what Trump ran on. Remember, he ran on the economy, lower gas prices, lower egg prices. Your bacon's going to go down, all of that. If I become president, all of that. You'll feel money coming back in your pockets the day that I become president. And when that didn't happen, they floated out the idea of sending some folks some $2,000 stimulus checks. Y'all got them yet? For all those folks that was holding those streams talking about, yeah, we about to get that stimmy again. Y'all got it yet? Angry Man, Sal, y'all got y'all your check yet? Because remember, both y'all had streams on that.
I'll finish answering your question. President Trump, when he gets into a transition, if that's the will of the American people, then we'll decide the policies, the people he wants in his administration.
Look at how many people are from this Heritage Foundation is connected either right next to or adjacent to in some kind of way in the Trump administration. And I'll use that term loosely. Again, another lie that's easily verifiable right now here in 2026. Go do your research for yourself. See if he's telling the truth. The Trump administration has too many ties to this Heritage Foundation. Personal ties.
All Project 2025 is a set of recommendations, and some percentage of those will be accepted. You know, Heritage Foundation is often referred to as Ronald Reagan's think tank. Ronald Reagan didn't accept 100% of our recommendations. I think ultimately it's a non-story because this is how the apparatus on the left always.
Not only Ronald Reagan and every other president up until Donald Trump did not agree with your radical ideology of Project 2025. You might have threw a new name on it, but we now know that y'all have pitched this idea to several Republican presidents over the years. And the only one that agreed to this was Trump. Again, another verifiable lie. And y'all trying to convince me that MAGA or the Heritage Foundation is not just a bigger version of Scientology, a cult. These are verifiable lies.
Always works. What's driving Biden and Harris and progressive Democrats crazy is that we've taken a page from their playbook to offer some recommendations if our candidates actually win.
And they may try 2025 a central focus of their campaign. When did they start doing that? Do you know how this came about?
Sometime this spring.
I mean, do you know how this came about, or what have you heard about why they decided to make this such a deal?
Well, I think they're desperate. They have nothing else to run on. I mean, just as a social scientist, as someone who I guess is something of an expert on politics, if you're Biden and Harris, what else would you run on? Their record's awful. The contrast in policy between the Biden-Harris administration.
We know that's not to be true. We can talk about the great things that last administration did. We can talk about the infrastructure. We can talk about the CHIP Science Acts. We can talk about the student loan forgiveness. There's too many things. Can I say that was that administration perfect? No, it was not. Of course, it's not. There's nothing under the sun. But compared to what we're under right now, what would you rather have? They're talking about dismantling the Department of Education. How many people will that leave out of schools? Because in order to qualify for these charter schools that they want to build, you have to go to these charter schools by what? By what you earn. So how many people is that going to automatically eliminate when they look at your tax fund or they look at your job or they look at how much you made for the year and it's less than 40,000? You think those folks going to say, yeah, you can come to this school? Of course not. But this is what Project 2025, now to Project 2026, is pushing. Charter schools. Let's get rid of public education and everybody go to charter schools.
and Trump's first term is night and day. I think that the American people are seeing this. What we hear so often in the focus groups we do around the country, David, is that Americans are saying, we don't even really care about which political party we belong to. We belong to the common sense party. And common sense is telling Americans that Biden has been an utter failure. They wish him a long, healthy, well-deserved, peaceful retirement. And from a policy perspective, just purely, I think that would be great for America.
That Trump has said that some of your ideas are crazy. Do you know the specific policies that he disagrees with you guys on?
No, not yet. I imagine at some point we'll have that conversation at the time we move from the political season, which is not our domain, right? We're in the policy and ideas and sort of academic and intellectual lane. It's the nature of a think tank. When we get into policy conversations, we'll figure that out. And to be clear, whether it's President Trump or whether it's a governor or whether it's a member of the Senate or the U.S.
You ask yourself so many times, folks, what's in a name? Notice how they never refers themselves as they always refer to themselves as a think tank, never as a political apparatus. The only time they want to be political is when it comes to what they make behind the scenes. But you always refer to themselves as a think tank. What does a think tank mean? And who's doing the thinking?
House, they tell us what they want their priorities to be, and the way public policy organizations work, the way Project 2025 works, is then say, if that's your priority, sir or ma'am, then here's the policy substance. Here's the plan that you might enact to go do that. So that's how that chronology works. The standard bearers always make the decisions.
I know Trump doesn't want to deal with Social Security or Medicare. He doesn't really want to touch it. What do you all say about those entitlement
We
programs?
say nothing about Social Security in Project 2025. Some of the individual organizations that are part of Project 2025 might do some work on that. Keep in mind, we've got 100.
Not unless you've been under a rock. We now know that that's a lie as well. What's been the most thing? This is what I was talking about. Watching Brian Taylor Cohen BTC at the shows that he do. This was kind of, I won't say that I stopped watching it, but I don't click on the alerts as much as I used to, because that was what it is. Trump is not going to touch Medicaid. He wouldn't dare. He wouldn't dare touch Social Security. But we now know, because of the writings and the articles found in Project 2025, he did. He did cut health care. How many Americans will be out of health care? He did. Remember, this interview is pre-Trump being elected. For the second time, I should say.
10 conservative organizations that are part of it. But we understand that President Trump not only has an intuitive sense of where the American people are on that question and others, but he also understands that obviously he's just going to have 4 years to get some priorities done. And he's rightly focused on those issues on which 80% of American people agree. We got to close the border. We've got to end illegal immigration. We have to end the nonsense of the Green New Deal. We've got to revitalize the American economy. And we have to stop being the police force around the world and actually have a very restrained.
Okay. We just heard those 4 things. Has the border been cleaned up at all? It's a cesspool right now. We heard so many horror stories of what's going on in the border. Right? Is the economy any better? No, it's not. Are we not in a foreign war that Trump said that, and this guy said that we were not going to be the policeman of the world? What has Trump done since he's been in office? He has been I better not use that word. He has been the strong arm policeman of the world. He literally sent his folks to go kidnap a president and his family to bring them to justice. So what am I supposed to take of what he just said? That we will not be the police force. Did y'all need to, matter of fact, let me let him say that again, so y'all don't think I'm making that shit up. Listen to what he says.
Agree. We got to close the border. We've got to end illegal immigration. We have to end the nonsense of the Green New Deal. We've got to revitalize the American economy. And we have to stop being the police force around the world and actually have.
We have to stop being the police force around the world. What has not Trump in his Pete Hegseth? He changed the Department of Defense to the Department of what? War. We saw what they did in Argentina. We saw what they told these folks. If you, we hear what his last random tweets at 3 o'clock in the morning on Memorial Day, him threatening an entire country with obliteration. He even what he tweeted out a couple of weeks before that, about a month ago, how he was going to wipe out an entire civilization.
Have a very restrained sense of foreign policy, use sparingly the military if we must, but it also has to be very lethal.
I know I've been told by several people that President Trump is kind of annoyed with you guys, and he thinks that y'all are trying to steal some of his thunder, trying to take credit for some of the things he's done. Have you gotten any blowback from Trump or any of his aides about the publicity surrounding?
They are rightly focused on winning a presidential campaign, and purely from a policy perspective. I don't do politics leading a nonprofit. I'm, as you know, an academic and a.
And the thunder that he's talking about, everybody was talking about Project 2025. Myself, ABT, and a few others, we tried to hold streams about Project 2025. Everybody was talking about if Project 2025 gets implemented. And because Donald Trump wanted to take credit for it, he was saying, this is my idea. This is why they finally had to admit to the fact of because Donald Trump and his ego would not allow these folks to operate and steal his thunder. Too many people was talking about this guy. Too many people was talking about the Heritage Foundation.
Policy guy. When we get into the policy season, once the election is behind us, then that's when public policy organizations, if they are so called, will perhaps have the opportunity to present some recommendations.
And the first time I heard about Project 2025 was I heard it was basically a recruiting mission, that you guys were looking for people to staff a Republican administration or in the alternative, a Trump administration. So how can you say, aren't y'all basically trying to forge whatever Trump does when he's get elected? Aren't y'all really trying to staff the second Trump administration?
Actually, what we're trying to do, beyond trying, we've succeeded in doing, is building a personnel database for the entire center-right movement in the country. And whoever the conservative standard bearer is, in this case, President Trump, if they choose that they want some of these people, then they are able to do that. The great thing about...
Again, whatever Republican president, if they choose, we have a idea that we can bring to you that if you take all these people that would resist you, if you get all of them out the way and staff it with loyalists, you won't have the problems that you had in 2016. That's what he just said. Because remember, this same Project 2025 under another name, Project 2026, and before that, its predecessor, it's still the same writing, but it was just presented to a different president. And this is the only president that say, yeah, I'm gonna run with this. Yeah, because it suited his ego. Know why? Because President Obama is living free in that man's head. Y'all can't tell me he's not.
Project 2025 is that we had a goal of recruiting 10,000 people into this database. Obviously, President Trump, Vice President Vance, their advisors will make those decisions, but never before has the conservative movement done this kind of thing. The left has done this for years. I think a lot of the mischaracterization is the intention behind that is to sort of obscure that that's what they've been doing. But the great thing about all of the earned media that Project 2025 has gotten in the last week is that we've had 3,000 additional Americans decide that they want to throw their name in the hat.
We're not going to push those guys to be part of the administration?
We're not pushing anybody, President Trump and Vice President Vance, to make those decisions.
And lastly, how does it feel to be a political punching bag? I'm always curious about this.
You know, I learned at an early age that you only take flack when you're over the target. So bring it on. We're taking the country back.
Bring it on. We're taking the country back. Back to what? Who took it from you? Who took the country from men that look like this? What is he referring to? But let's remove this and let's go to our final feature. Y'all want to know who this guy is? I played those 3 clips for that reason. All right, check this out. Remove that.
Yale University.
Let me stop that right there. And here it is. This is 6 months ago. Okay. As you can see, the name's Dr. David Blight right there. Sterling Professor of History at Yale University. I'm sure he's taught a whole lot of historians over the year to be at Yale. Logical assessment, you said Obama's too busy chasing Jennifer Aniston around. Well, no, again, we can agree to disagree, but I disagree with that one there, my man. I don't think that even if whatever the rumors were saying about Obama and his relationship with Jennifer Aniston, I don't think that former President Obama wakes up in the middle of the night tweeting about Jennifer Aniston, whatever her name is. Although she is quite an attractive young lady, but I just don't see Obama waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning to tweet about Jennifer Aniston. Do you? Regardless of whether the rumors that you're saying are true or not. I'm just saying. But anyway, what we see here on the screen, folks, here is Kevin Roberts, again, the president of the Heritage Foundation. Now, let me go back. And let me show you something. Before you guys, I wanted to make sure that you understand how much of a hypocrite this guy is. This is why I played those clips first. Okay? So let me share this with you again. Now let's go back to the Heritage Foundation again. Okay. Remember this particular picture that I talked about in the beginning. He's going to use the word revisionist history a lot. Okay? He's going to use the word revisionist history. And if you was to sit myself and Kevin Roberts down right now, based on the argument that he's about to present to you, I would crush him with one statement. I'm looking at revisionist history, sir. Because this painting that the United States of America, that it's on your website, this is the quintessential. If revisionist history ever had a picture to it, this would be it. Even so much so that people have had arguments about this guy that's looking that who was the slave in the boat. Who was the slave in the boat? The picture that was painted 75 years after the actual crossing of the Delaware. But you're about to explain to why you hate these Black museums like the Smithsonian and so many other places, and why you think Democrats are the main culprits of things like DEI, revisionist history, teaching children that not all America is bad. We don't want them to know. We only want them to know about the good parts of us. We don't want you to know that Thomas Jefferson, even though he was a great founding father, we don't want y'all to know that he had slaves. We don't want y'all to know that George Washington, although we told a lie for several years that he chopped down the cherry tree belonging to his dad, he never told a lie. But we now know that George Washington told a lie about his teeth. They weren't wooden. We all should have known that, because we know if you keep wood in your mouth long enough, you know, if you're one of those guys that chew on toothpicks, sooner or later it gets soggy, don't it? And imagine the horrific smell that would have came out of his mouth after a week or a week and a half of having wooden teeth in his mouth. But guess where he got them teeth from? But they don't want you to know that in history. This is what they want you to remember about George Washington, the Heritage Foundation. But I digress. If I need to come back to it later, I will.
the Lehrman Center for the Study of Slavery and Abolition, and it's my honor today to have as a guest for this podcast.
Now, he gets his PhD in the study of slavery and abolitions. I said, wolf in sheep's clothing. Now, let's go. Matter of fact, let me back that up again so y'all can hear that from the beginning.
Hello, I'm David Blight. I teach American history at Yale University, direct the Gilded Lehrman Center for the Study of Slavery and Abolition, and it's my honor today to have as a guest for this podcast Kevin Roberts, the president of the Heritage Foundation. We've been communicating for many months about how to get together to do something like this, and thank you, Kevin, for coming to Yale to speak to the Yale Political Union, the student organization, and for taking time this morning to do this podcast.
I mean it genuinely, Professor Blight. I'll call you David thereafter. I've admired your work for a long time, admire this institution, and have looked forward to this conversation. So the honor is mine.
Well, I've looked forward to it as well. Let me quickly introduce Kevin. He grew up in Lafayette, Louisiana. Working class family, something we share. I grew up in Flint, Michigan, in the deep automobile working class. He went to what was then Southwestern Louisiana University for his BA, history major. Interesting senior thesis on James Longstreet, one of the most interesting characters in the Civil War and certainly in the Confederacy. MA at Virginia Tech, where he first started studying American slavery. He studied African Americans in their extended kin networks.
African American and their extended kin networks. Let that sink in for a minute. Compare that to what he's running, the two organizations that he's running now. All that African American study, all that study about slavery. Compare that to the Heritage Foundation and these comments that we're about to hear in a little bit.
And their family forums in Virginia. Then he went to UT Austin for his PhD, where he continued the study of American slavery. His
PhD and the continued study. That means he learned a little bit more about us. He had scholarly people telling him about you cannot get away from the horrors of slavery if you have a PhD in it. So he got a healthy dose of what it actually is. You cannot tell me if I could go to YouTube and pull up a video that says the voices of slavery that he hadn't done the same. That out of the millions and millions of people that watch those voices of slave videos, that Kevin, along with DJ Music, is not one of those people that watch those or did some of the reading on it. You can't tell me that he don't know about the horrors of slavery. But I digress so far. Let's go.
Dissertation was called Slaves and Slavery in Louisiana, the evolution of Atlantic world identity. So Kevin is a scholar of slavery. He caught that wave, I think, of the 90s, early aughts, which was an extended version of what we used to call culture as resistance, the cultural lives of enslaved people.
He came in the 90s when, guess what was popular? Black pride, black power, wolf in sheep's clothing. Man, remember in the 90s and the aughts, guess what was popular? Black sitcoms like, what's that, A Different World. You had movies that was like, all these movies that's coming up that hip hop movies and all, and music and all that coincides with this man and Donald Trump being in our atmosphere. What's it here for?
I actually am good friends with a couple of your former mentors. They speak highly of you as a scholar, to say the least. Now, how does all that education provide a backdrop? Well, you got a tenure track job. You went out to New Mexico State and so forth. But how does all that backdrop play now in the trajectory you've been on for the last 20 years? Are you still a historian, or are you a mostly political spokesman now for the American right? How do you see that trajectory?
A lot of continuity. It makes perfect sense to me because, but to answer your question point blank, I think once a historian, always a historian, right?
Yeah, you can't help it.
And as my wife says, when people ask, when Kevin is done with policy and politics, what you hope?
Yeah, that's true. But you can be a historian that distorts history. No, you can't take away from the fact that once a historian, always a historian. That's like saying once a Marine, always a Marine, regardless to how your career ended. But you can always be a historian, but not teach history in its right connotation. And that's what you're doing. You, so far from what I've seen, Kevin, you want to distort history.
A very long time from now, because I love what I'm doing. What will he, in semi-retirement, do? And she said, well, he's definitely going to go back to the classroom. And I mean that. I miss the classroom. I miss students. I very much enjoyed last night being with all of the students of the Yale Political Union, including those who are self-avowed communists and socialists, right? And this is, but look, David,
no,
it's all
they
fine.
are an amazing lot.
It's the same way that you
and they can
might
shout at each other and still talk to each other.
That's what I said. It's for whatever you think about heritage. We are very interested in revitalizing civil discourse. But to the core part of your question, which is a good.
We're very interested in revitalizing civil discourse, meaning we would like to, tell you folks how to protest. What we deem is right, the right way to protest, civil discourse. You don't do it our way, guess what? There might be some trouble. Heritage Foundation got all that covered in Project 2025, which is now Project 2026. They got all of that covered, folks.
Question. I see it as a great privilege now being someone people refer to as one of the intellectual leaders of conservatism. I do less sort of bare knuckles politics than people realize. I mean, we start with ideas and principles and policies at Heritage. But to the extent that that's true, that I am one of the intellectual leaders of conservatism now, first of all, that's a sort of overwhelming privilege. But it's my grounding in American history, especially early American history, and very specifically thinking about our respective specializations, early African American history, that has given me a really helpful context for that. And so now to sum up here,
but
as I think
again, you have to pay attention to what he's saying. All that, that's why I wanted, I'm glad we got to the introduction, because all those PhDs and all those credentials was not about, as they say, American history. It was specifically African American history. There is someone correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a distinction in those PhDs. You can have a PhD in early American history, and you can also have a PhD in early African American history. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. So there is a distinction, but if you listen to him, he didn't provide a distinction. Now, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but where's the distinction here?
The intellectual leaders of conservatism. I do less sort of bare knuckles politics than people realize. I mean, we start with ideas and principles and policies at Heritage. But to the extent that that's true, that I am one of the intellectual leaders of conservatism now, first of all, that's a sort of overwhelming privilege. But it's my grounding in American history, especially early American history. And
it's my grounding in American history, especially early American history. Now, again, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't mind being wrong. But I think that is a completely different PhD or, whatever you get. I haven't gone to college, but someone please correct me if I'm wrong. But what he's about to say is a completely different study.
Very specifically thinking about our respective specializations, early African American history, that has given me a really helpful context for that. And so now to sum up here.
Okay, so again, there goes the argument when someone says African American history is American history. That's what he just said. He just put the two together. But you give some push. Some people will give pushbacks when we say that that's not American history. American history is hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet. Has nothing to do with slavery. We don't need to know about that. We don't need to know about Jim Crow era. We don't need to know about Reconstruction, because that's not real American history. That's just the bad part that we had to go through. That's the unfortunate part. We shouldn't talk about that.
As I think about some of the policy guidance we offer Congress, the administration, for that matter, governors, education leaders around the country, people often seek me out, not just for, whatever political acumen I may possess, policy guidance, but because they know that's grounded in history. That's why Governor Abbott, for example, asked me to chair the 1836 Commission for Texas, for the Texas Bicentennial. And I told the governor, I'll sum up here, David, with this, but it encapsulates this. I told the governor when he called me, years ago to chair that as a riff off the 1776 Commission that President Trump started. So, Governor, I'm happy to do it.
I want y'all to remember that 1776, because if you go look at the slush fund a month, guess how much it's for? Go look at the slush fund and see how much it's for. Guarantee you will see these four numbers: 1776. I don't care how many zeros you put behind it, but you will see that number.
I want you to know we're neither going to do what I consider to be the unacceptable revisionist history of the left, nor are we going to do some of the whitewashing that people on the right want to do. I was trained at the University of Texas, very grateful to my mentors to this day. My colleagues at Heritage know that because I say that all the time. Our politics are different.
Sidbury's a good friend of mine.
He's a great
He's
mentor.
a good
Our
historian.
politics are different. A
Very
great
good.
historian.
Yeah.
He trained me well and he treated me well. But all of that to say, I still see my policy and political work through the lens of a historian.
Well, let's talk about history. What should as practicing historians, what should our values, our ethics, our methods be? How do you define that? Because your criticisms, even attacks, Heritage's attacks on the practice of history, whether it's in universities, Smithsonian, National Park Service, etc.
Well, basically, I think what he's saying is your early works, it contradicts your works right now. I don't know why he just didn't come out and say that.
etc., has really challenged our ethics, and the claim has been we've violated our ethics. You used the term revisionist. What should our values, ethics, and methods be?
I was trained well also at Virginia Tech by my graduate thesis advisor, Randy Shiflett, another great historian of slavery and the family, whose politics are very different than mine too. And you see
That's what he said.
You see a trend there, but trained well, and I'm grateful for that. But he said, when I asked him that question as a basically know nothing early young graduate student, he said, Kevin, just follow the sources.
Yeah.
Let the sources guide you. And so the first principle, I know you agree with this, David, let the sources guide you. And then the second thing, while we can't ever fully check whatever biases we have, whether they be cultural or political, we at least need to acknowledge if we think that they're getting in the way of our assessment of those sources. And the reason that I respectfully use the word revisionist, although I mean it intentionally, is because there has been maybe a generation or so of historians not doing that. And just to jump ahead where I imagine this conversation might go, and
Now you understand why Turning Point USA and the Heritage Foundation are in these schools. Now you understand why they're in these chat rooms. Now you understand why some of these content creators are being funded by these folks, because they're not trying to reach the 50, the 45, the 60-year-old. They're trying to reach that younger generation. You just heard it out of his own mouth. It's the younger generation that's changed the idea of thinking that this is going to be a society that is colorless. We know better than that.
I'm happy for it too. The charges against the Heritage Foundation for politicizing history is actually projection by historians who have been engaged in that kind of revisionism. Our point at Heritage is, let's get back to the point where we're letting the sources, not our contemporary politics, guide us.
But after a historian follows his or her sources, aren't we all revisionists? Aren't we revising some kind of interpretation, not just because it's good for the market, but because that's what we do. That's
Sure.
how knowledge changes. That's how interpretation changes.
In the simplest meaning of the term, which is simple as a compliment. But take, for example, as my colleagues at Heritage have assessed, James Madison's Montpelier. Why would there be at Montpelier basically an absence of interpretation of James Madison's biggest contribution, which is the main composer, writer of the
He
Constitution?
took a draft to Philadelphia.
But again, you see what I'm saying is, we all know about what happened with James Madison. We all know that this is historical. This is not a hidden historical fact of whatever, however the Constitution was put together. But again, I showed you the picture of them saying that all these great men was in the same place at the same time to sign the Declaration of Independence. That was a created picture. That picture never existed. It existed from the mind of someone who thought it looked that way. So are we talking about revisionist history or made up history when it comes to Kevin Roberts right now? Because I just showed you two examples of made up revisionist history that the United States holds dear to them. There's gold coins that's been sold with this. There's American flags with this. They got all kinds of flags with this founding fathers on it. There's T-shirts with all these different so-called founding father archives on it and memorabilia. But based on what? Two pictures that did not exist.
Because there have been historians, not you necessarily, but there have been historians who've decided that Montpelier's interpretation could be a political project rather than a historical project. What I'm saying is you're all welcome to your politics, but don't say that that is acceptable revisionism.
Okay. Fair enough. I actually gave a talk once at Montpelier. It was, I can't remember what it was even on.
I bet it was a good one.
Oh, I don't know. We had a panel. Anyway, now you've argued, among other things, that our culture is in a, quote, civilizational fight. A civilizational fight.
And remember, the piece that I did on Delano Squires, he said, and the leader, the main problem of the Black community is this civilizational fight against social media. So basically, they identified Black Americans as the main source of the decline of American civilization. Why? Because they say we're having more children out of wedlock, that Black fathers are more absent in the home than white fathers. But I just showed you empirical data that none of that, what they're saying, is true. Someone came in here last week and argued with me that the birth rate for Black women is down. But I had to, even though the words weren't good enough, I had to go and show them had to go give them the empirical data to show them that that was not true. It's only true to those who want to believe it. Those who do not want to go and look up the information for themselves.
What's the civilization you're fighting for? Is it a set of beliefs? Is it a
the white civilization?
Is it a history? Is it
white history?
A set of traditions? If it's a civilizational fight, that's a big idea. What is it?
It's all of those things, plus it is a place, literally a big chunk of land we call the United States.
Yeah.
And it is a people, composed, no doubt, of dozens.
Notice he said a people, not all people. He didn't put two L's behind that A. He said a people, meaning people that look like him. That's the America that the Heritage Foundation wants to create. And for the most part, that's what Donald Trump wants to create. because he said it himself. We don't want people from these shithole countries. And what countries was he referring to when he said shithole? Black and brown countries. Now there goes the tie. To wrap that up in a nice little ball. If you believe in me, if you're trying to convince me that Donald Trump and Kevin Roberts do not have the same ideology, a people, meaning not all people,
of smaller cultures. I come from one, the Cajun culture of Louisiana, so I see this well and respectfully of other cultures.
Culture,
it is
born up in Canada,
right.
Exported to Louisiana. It's fascinating.
And
correct me if I'm wrong, but Cajun people come in all varieties, all shapes and all colors. So how do you reconcile that, Kevin? How do you take the black out of the Cajun culture? I'll show you how they just did it. Listen.
And yet, you know, we see ourselves, I think most immigrants to this country, more recent immigrants to this country, see themselves as Americans first. So it's all of those things. And the civilizational battle is because others have drawn the battle lines, in my view, to attack those things, to attack the traditions, to attack the history for that matter, to attack even the idea that the United States, while of course being a nation of ideas, is first and foremost a real place with real people. As my friend, the vice president, said a year and a half ago, in what I think is one of the greatest speeches in modern political history on historical terms, he said, this country is a place where you will be born or immigrate to, hopefully legally. And it's a place where we will die, hopefully all of us a long time from now, and you'll be buried. And in that ground, your remains will turn to dust and your descendants can walk above them.
Well, he just took the words of older black people and turned it around to where it fit his narrative. It's called ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Now, me as a person that was born on this soil, of course, and not unless I move to Japan, that's probably where I'm going to be buried at, on this soil. But not necessarily someone who lives in this on this soil that became an American citizen. They might write in their final will that if I should pass, I want to be taken back to my native homeland to be buried. A lot of people do that. So that negates that right there. Like I said, I'm not, I don't have the PhD, but damn. So I don't know why you would quote the vice president on some stupid shit like that and call it great.
That concept is what motivates us at Heritage, not just to defend American civilization, Western civilization, but also through our policy work to find ways that we can reform the assaults on it.
What do you say then to those historians, teachers, common Americans who have benefited from so much of this revised history that has brought the history of women, the history of Native Americans, the history of African Americans for decades now, history of Latino Americans, the history of all kinds of immigrants into this vast pluralistic story, and they've benefited from it, and they've learned so much from it. The epithet of it being a revisionist history doesn't mean it's tearing something down. It's something being added to. It's something benefiting the people who want to know their identity, just like those African American slaves in Virginia and Louisiana wanted to figure out what their identities were.
Right. The very thing that Professor Blight, that you did your dissertation on, that you had your PhD on, that you got us all this education on. You literally became somebody you are, who you are, because of us, not in spite of us. And this Heritage Foundation, 20 years later, all that education is for what? Not because you're not using it for what it was intended for. Certainly not. And I'm glad the professor pointed that out to you. How do you reconcile that? But he'll try to.
Generation. Where were they from? Who were they?
Sure.
Same thing happens now. Why attack this process of revising our history when that's naturally what historians do?
Respectfully,
Yeah.
and truly respectfully, it's a false dichotomy to say that what Heritage and I are defending the tradition, people, place is somehow incongruous with adding voices that had not been covered by previous generations of historians to that story. Going back to your opening question of me, my own scholarship played a teeny tiny role in adding those voices.
You should have published that first book.
I probably should have, but I moved on to founding a school, and I've heard that many.
So basically what he's saying is now he wants to underscore why he had his PhD, why he became so prominent in his community. What he's saying is it just played a teeny tiny role in who he is. The study of African American slavery and African American people and their ancestry. I wanted to find out who and what they were. That shouldn't apply anymore, because that doesn't define who I am. But at the core of you, Kevin, that's who you are. That's why people know you.
Many times, in fact, some presses, including one in this town, contacted me thereafter. All of that aside, I want to, and the second point is I want to distinguish that very good work from what I see as revisionist history. Everything you described up to that point, I think, is just history. The revisionist history is the insertion intentionally of contemporary politics into historical interpretation. I think, for example, the African American History Museum in Washington, D.C. is the best example of this, which is to say it's got the worst examples of historical interpretation that I can imagine.
Really? The worst, such as? I love that place. I worked on it, and its founding director, Bonnie Bunch, is frankly the most admired public historian in America. But go ahead. What's so fundamentally wrong with the African American Museum?
I would point people to our Heritage Guide for Historic Places to go into some of the detail there.
I've read through that. It's an interesting document.
And I've got great gratitude, David, for your work and
First, he doesn't want to answer the question, but when he does, again, I'll wait for him to answer it.
For the work of people there, but there are some exhibits there that have completely inverted the project of historians, which is to say that in one of them, there's basically a Marxist interpretation of how slaves resisted slavery. That's a little absurd from a historian.
It's a Marxist interpretation of how slaves resisted. It couldn't have happened that way. Is basically what he's saying so far.
Historical standpoint.
How is it Marxist?
The language that's used there in the exhibit.
They were resisting capital or something?
No, that's basically the insinuation in the text of the exhibit. It's that kind of thing that, frankly, is just silly. How about we just tell the story, as I try to do in my own scholarship, and many historians did. That's why I had the idea of slaves, because of how they are wired to be free, like all humans fighting for that. I think that museum misses an opportunity, at the least, to bring more Americans into that conversation.
But then why has it been the hottest ticket in Washington?
Okay, so let's stop right there. He's talking about the African American Museum in D.C., and he's talking about in particular you start at the bottom, right? You go up, and you start at the bottom. You're in the slavery exhibit. But the more you go up, you'll see what he means by the resilience and the some of the things that Black people had to do to even become full, recognizable citizens. But let me show you this. This is what he's about to criticize. Okay, hold on just a second. This is what he's about to criticize. This is what he's about. This particular exhibit, the slavery and freedom exhibit. This is what he's about to criticize. Then it starts up, you end up on the ground floor, and you'll see all these different exhibits, and they'll tell you, they'll give you a little background on what the picture's about, and so on and so forth. Or as you see on this first picture that more than likely they'll tell you about, you'll see the white European showing up in Africa without a gun, as they say, as a person that's interested in that culture. He's there to greet these people, and these native folks are greeting them. Now, this is prior to the 1400s, but let's go a little farther. This is Charleston. This is Charleston here. Okay, this is the Charleston slave cabin. You can actually come to Charleston, South Carolina, and drive down Highway 61 and see that. You can actually go into this museum and see these freedom papers. You can also go see a copy of this. All of this is at this particular museum, at the Smithsonian. And this particular place, let me pull this up also. Let me pull this up. This is what he's about to criticize. This is what he's criticizing. He's telling you all about the history of slavery here in Charleston and in DC, because if you go to the main one in DC, you'll see exhibits like this and more. And these trying to convince you, if you go to these places like the Smithsonian and like this particular museum, that this is revisionist history, that they should not teach this. That this is all revisionist history. This is in Charleston, South Carolina, not too far away. You can see this. Pay a little bit of money. 250 years. They tell you about the black cowboy. A lot of people think that the only cowboy that ever existed in the United States of America was the Buffalo Soldiers. We had them right here in Charleston, South Carolina. Historical things that this guy is trying to tell you, that's revisionist history.
Years.
Oh,
And
because there's
from all over the world.
There's a big market for that kind of silly revisionist history, and that's the kind of thing we have to change.
But there's also a big market for having some semblance of an understanding of the slave trade.
I'm glad to know that you're a populist.
To some extent, perhaps. But I'm all for broadening knowledge and understanding of history as far as we can take it.
Oh, I agree with you there entirely.
And there are floors in that museum that just mesmerize me. The floor on music is incredible. The floor on sports is amazing. And then
I
start down in the.
I remember when
Beyonce.
You remember when Beyonce put out the country album, and how upset some white America was, saying, couldn't y'all just leave that music alone? That music don't belong to your company. Then you had the schools, white America, that actually, yes, it is. And if you go to that museum, it'll show you exactly where the foundation of country music actually came from. It did not come from white America, as they would like you to believe.
Slave trade in the basement. There's a narrative arc to it. And in the end, that museum, it's founding documents, it's founding ideas, and I served on some of those committees, was to show how African-American history is American history.
Sure. And
at the core of it. That's changed this country.
Our critique of that museum is not denying that. So it's really important to make that distinction. In fact, we believe so fervently in that. We want the story to be accurate rather than politicized.
Well, I think all historians want to be accurate.
Well, Kevin, if you wanted the story to be accurate, why did you have all of these things that had anything to do with being, dare I use the word, gay, or any resemblance of Black American greatness? You had it removed from the National Archives. Why is there places over there and across the pond where American Black soldiers had monuments, and you tried to remove them, and it took another country to put those, hey Shar, how you doing, monuments back in place? Why when we look at Project 2025 and see that instead of removing some of the names, Confederate names, from Confederate bases that were slaveholders. Y'all came in and reversed that process because it upset the balance of what was taught to everyone, that what's his name, Custer's Last Stand, and all these other places like that. Why you complain about now that we confirmed that John Wayne, and truly, in fact, was a racist? That's why he got his statue taken away from the airport. It wasn't us that asked the United States government to remove all historical artifacts from public view of what, Robert E. Lee. It was his family. Your history is our anguish in a lot of cases. So why should we, as American citizens, be forced to look at it? According to Mr. Roberts, that's revisionist history.
Do. I mean, I was trained. I don't know any historians. Well, there are a few around the edges of every history department who will practice ideology first. There always have been. Sometimes they can produce some pivotal and interesting history, and they can push us. But I was taught by one of my mentors at Wisconsin, do your research, keep your ideology in your pocket, lead with evidence, and then fold your metaphor in later. You know, it's good.
And that's exactly what, that's a lesson a lot of content creators need to learn. Do your research first. Let me play that again so y'all folks will understand.
I don't know any historians. Well, there are a few around the edges of every history department who will practice ideology first. There always have been. Sometimes they can produce some pivotal and interesting history, and they can push us. But I was taught by one of my mentors at Wisconsin, do your research.
Do your research. Don't come up here empty-handed. Always assume that somebody else has done research. Always assume that somebody, that's what I tell everybody, assume that I already know what you're talking about. Do your research.
Keep your ideology in your pocket.
Keep your ideology, check your what you call it, at the door. Ideology or ideology does not win a debate. It generally causes you to lose because you're stuck on what you believe in.
Lead with evidence.
Always have your evidence. I see a lot of people that come up on these platforms talking about, well, I don't know. Well, I think so. No. I came at you with empirical evidence of every damn near every topic I ever bring to anyone. I always show you the evidence. I just don't guess at it. I'm not guessing that this man, Kevin Roberts, is an unelected shadow president. I'm not guessing that. The empirical evidence should tell everyone that he has more influential power about this political system that he's letting on. And what else, my man?
And then fold your metaphor in later, you know.
And then I'll tell you what I think after that. After I done collected all my evidence, after I done showed you all my evidence, and then there's no dispute what I'm going to say, after that, I'm going to tell you what I think about it. And then that's the time for you to correct me and say, well, I think you misinterpret that a different way or that way. That's the time. And that's the crucial part in any debates. That's what decides whether you win or lose, if you are prepared to go into battle with it. Most of y'all are not. I heard somebody speak today that he don't lose. Well, you ain't came up against the right person yet. And you know who I'm talking to and I'm talking about. You ain't came up against the right person yet, because I would eat you alive. I wouldn't have to open up anything. I could eat you alive just from what comes up out of my brain. No one tests me, man. I'm not saying I know it all, but I know one thing. And in a battle of wits, I would beat you. But I heard you confess to the world this morning that you done knocked them all down. You done knocked the Angry Man down. You done knocked Fatty down. You done knocked Obsidian down. You done knocked Tommy down. You done knocked Big J down. You done knocked this person down. You ain't came over here yet. You ain't hit this link yet. So let me know when you want to do that. Let me play a little bit more of this, and then we'll get on up out of here.
It's good advice.
It is. It's simple, but it's what most of us do. So why nitpick the African American? Let's back up.
It's not
further.
nitpick. It's an example of a much bigger trend that you're talking about the popularity of the museum.
Mm-hmm.
You ask the average American about the state of the history profession and their willingness to trust historians of the last generation. And I lament this, by the way. I'm not lobbing stones at you. I'm this is one of us,
right?
One of you, and they know not to, because in fact the problem that you described as being on the fringes of most departments for the youngest generations of historians actually is a much bigger number.
Okay, what about the historians who was telling us for years that Columbus discovered America? I'll just leave it at that, logical. I'll leave it at that, my brother. That message is for that particular person. If he listens, he'll know who I'm talking about. I'll just leave it at that. But again, I lost my train of thought on that one. So let me replay that again. Hold on just a second.
The problem that you described as being on the fringes of most departments for the youngest generations of historians actually is a much bigger number. That's the kind of thing we have to fix, going all the way back to the formation of historians in the graduate school.
History. I mean, Yale has.
He said for the younger history. What about all these different things we know now? If you graduated high school in I'll say for the 70s, say you graduated in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s. If you took a test, a high school equivalency test that says who was the founding father, who discovered America, and you answered it, Christopher Columbus, and that was the question that decided whether you pass or fail, guess what you just did? You failed. Because that's the wrong answer.
Resources and advantages. But the history major is like the third largest major at Yale. And one of the reasons is we've hired a lot of really good young teachers who love what they do, and they inspire kids about wherever it is, Latin America, Africa, India.
But all of that could be true, and it could also be true, as I'm claiming, that there's way too much ideology on the front end of the work.
I've been on search committees where ideology, bubbles to the top, and you have to kind of whack. Often controversial, especially art museums. Art museums are always on the edge. Otherwise, it's probably not interesting art. And full disclosure, I'm actually now, for sins I don't understand, on the board of the National Portrait Gallery. I think Lonnie Bunch had something to do with it. But
Port Museum, thanks for doing that.
Well, it's been a turbulent time the past year or so of the National Portrait Gallery. And
the turbulent time is fighting the Trump administration when they've gone through and literally gutted anything like, we all know the plane that delivered the bomb to Nagasaki and Hiroshima. It's called the Enola Gay. That, because it made a reference to the alphabet community, was stricken from the National Archives. The great Olympic runner Tyson Gay, because his name popped up in a nation, whatever that was, anything that said gay or anything about gay. Marvin Gaye, all these names that had anything to do with the alphabet community was stricken from so-called public record because it referred to a certain sect of the American society. According to this guy right here, and the two organizations that they say are not political organizations, folks. They have no political power. But if you go back to Project 2025 and Project 2026, I'll be damned if you won't find this very same thing. I'm be damned if you won't find the very same policies from Project 2025 going on right now. That's implemented. I think if we look at it, Project 2025 is about 65, 70% completely implemented. There's only a few more things that they need to do. Right. Again, right. Again, they're a logical assessment. A logical assessment is tell me when they told us about Columbus in school when he said I ran into some natives, that tells me that somebody was here before you got here. They forget to tell us that and if Columbus discovered the place, why was it called the United States of Columbus? Not the United States of America, because we all know that America's Vespucci was discovered the Americas. He might have landed in South America, but we know, according to his journals and his findings and the things that we do know about this Italian or this Spaniard, that he did visit the shores of not only South America, North America as well, so much so that that's where we get our name from, America's Vespucci. But to listen to according to the Heritage Foundation, folks, that's revisionist history. If we tell the folks that Columbus did not discover America, that's revisionist history. It's CRT. If we tell folks that Thomas Jefferson had slaves, that's CRT. That's revisionist history. If we tell folks that George Washington did not chop down no cherry tree, that's revisionist history. If we tell folks that that picture that y'all reveal so much of George Washington crossing the Delaware, that y'all call one of the most historical portraits of all time, was painted 75 years after it happened, that's revisionist history. But actually is actual and factual. Y'all try to tell us it's revisionist history that the mere thing, this what they call this, the Star Spangled Banner. Y'all for years try to hide the real third stanza of it that told slaves that if you go help these British, there's no place that you can hide. This is what the Heritage Foundation don't want the younger generation to know about. That's why they call it CRT. That's why they call it revisionist history. It's history that they don't want us to know. They don't want us to know that them old boys with the powdered wigs and the knickers and the funny looking smocks had slaves. Several of them. They don't want you to know that if you go to the museum in DC, that picture of the slave standing in the water with his hands rippled out, meaning how that not only was slavery effective here in the United States of America, it was effective worldwide. But if you listen to Kevin, that's revisionist history. We shouldn't be teaching that. That's the problem that I'm having with the Heritage Foundation. It's an organization that, if it had its way, that would take us back to Make America Great Again, MAGA, to where the good old times, let the good times roll. Now, there's a little bit more to this, folks. I would implore everyone to go over to the Good Doctor's stream. Let me pull this off the stream so y'all can see where to go. I'm sure I do have it down in my description, but make sure you go check out Dr. David Blight and finish watching. This is an interesting feed here. But I just wanted to point out to y'all folks, who is really running this country? Who's really writing them speeches for Donald Trump when he goes off script? What's the guy's name? Stephen Baker. Where's he at? Stephen Miller. I'm sorry, I don't know why I want to keep saying Stephen Baker. Where is Stephen Miller at? Why is he not in the news as much? Who is the real shadow president here? Who is really running the country? What policies are we really running? Has Donald Trump ever shown us a policy of his? Yeah, the Democrats are complicit. We got a president of the United States that have a $10 billion slush fund that he's willing to give to criminals. We had a reporter that said that American black people should be glad to go to jail. That is a form of reparations. When you go to jail and you get 3 hots in a cot, that is reparations for you. Let's face it. Most African Americans been stealing since they could crawl. That's what she said. And you can go to her director ties to who? The Heritage Foundation. He sat down with Mushmouth, Tim Scott. And you talking about a Yassa Boss parade. Tim Scott, Yassa Boss. They tried to redistrict here in South Carolina. Guess what? Even the Republicans pushed back, realizing, I don't think we're going to be able to get away with that. And too many black folks down here in Charleston, South Carolina, in the surrounding areas, Mount Pleasant, Somerville, Goose Creek, Hanahan, James Island, Sutherland's Island, Beaufort, Columbia, Addendale. There's too many black people in those areas. St. Stephen's, Orangeburg. There's no real way that we can really redistrict South Carolina because black folks are everywhere. I think we make up about, 58%, 57%, 59% of the population here in South Carolina. But we only got one representative, Jeb Clyburn. We got that crazy-ass Nancy Mace running around. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank y'all for coming out. Appreciate you there. Logical assessment for always dropping through. Char Willie, thank you so very much for coming through. Candy Cane Lane, thank you for so very much. Again, folks, y'all need to go check out this Kevin Roberts. Because this is who really is running this country. I'm convinced it's not Trump and his cronies. It's the people with money. It's people with power. And he's running two of the most powerful organizations. This is almost a Jimmy Hoffa shit here, folks. With that, y'all be cool. I'm out yet. Thank you.
Look, all you motherfuckers been snitching for him and shit. Now you standing up in here and goddamn it talking about preach it, preacher. Fuck that nigga. Fuck that. I'm gonna shoot your ass too, motherfucker. Keep on. You gonna get shot too, nigga. You gonna get shot. God bless the fool, goddammit. God bless the fool. Now, I'm gonna tell y'all something. I'm gonna end this goddamn thing. Look, where's that goddamn money bowl at? Who got that money bowl? We taking that money right now before you leave this bitch. We ain't leaving out here for free, motherfucker. Yeah. Y'all know the motherfucker ain't no good. You want, look,